Hello my dear friends, welcome to LivePrep. Myself Dr. Gajapati Varma and we are starting with the chapter Cell the Unit of Life. And here before going with this particular chapter, I am requesting you to go through the videos that were uploaded as a general information. So actually here there are 3 videos, one is regarding the faculty introduction and apart from this there are 2 other important videos. So I made a separate video regarding what are the various points that we are covering from the NCERT for NEET examination. So this is compulsory, and before you are starting with this particular course, please go through that video so that you will get the idea about what are the points that we need to focus for examination. And without that, if you are starting this one, that means your preparation is not 100%, so it will be a single video. So please go through that so that you will get clear cut idea about what to study for examination. There is a separate video, and apart from that there is a separate video, and there I have discussed about some sentences that were given in NCERT. Some random examples I have taken from the NCERT itself, but what is the way in which we need to read them, because many students are making mistake in that particular perspective. So that is the reason why I made I have given some simple examples from NCERT and what is the correct way of reading them. So in this way I have given some information, and apart from that some other important information also I have discussed. So I am requesting you that first cover those videos because they are the general information for all the chapters. So cover them and then you just start with this particular course. So in the course we are first starting with cell chapter, but before directly going with the chapter, first we will see the unit. If you are observing the unit, and here the unit is cell structure and functions, we are studying here. And in this, in NCERT they have given 3 chapters. What are those 3 chapters? Cell the unit of life, and then biomolecules, and finally it is cell cycle and cell division. 3 chapters are there. And here if you are observing, they have given some basic introduction regarding all the 3 units. So here generally students, they are skipping this particular part, directly they are going with the chapter. Please remember, this is also part of NCERT. All these things I have discussed in that video, so please go through that video once again. So here they have given some information, and this information somewhere it is linked with our regular chapter, somewhere it is definitely linked. So at that particular point we will come back to this, and then we will cover this particular portion also. So please remember, questions can be asked from this particular unit introduction also. But anyhow, now in this particular lecture we don't need to go through this. So in the next lecture we will cover these points because this content is linked with the next lecture. So there we will see it. So now I am skipping for this, and now we are going with the next page. In the next page, if you are observing, they have given a scientist name. And what is the name of the scientist? G.N. Ramachandran. And this scientist, and here they gave some information. And this scientist is related to which chapter? Is he related to the cell chapter? No, he is not related to cell chapter. Then which chapter? Biomolecules chapter. So he is related to biomolecules chapter. So since we are studying cell chapter now, we don't need to study about this scientist. So when we study about biomolecules chapter, in that chapter also, when that specific content comes, that time we will come back to this particular information and we will cover this information also. So in this way we need to cover this introductory information in relation with regular content. Then only your preparation will be perfect. Is it clear? So that means what is the overall conclusion? So this basic introduction and this particular part are not needed for this particular lecture. So let us skip this so that we can directly go with the regular chapter. So what is that regular chapter? Regular chapter is cell the unit of life. And here generally for any chapter, initially they will give some introduction. And what is the introduction they have given in NCERT? They are initially saying that, so when you are looking around, we will find so many living organisms and non-living things, many things that we are observing now. And here they are asking the comparison between living and non-living. And before directly we are going into that, and since you are the repeater students, already you have studied all these chapters in class 11th and class 12th. So please remember, I have the freedom to combine all these contents whenever it is required. So now the same thing I am doing here. If you are observing this, this is the table that was given in biomolecules chapter. And why we are talking about that particular table here? Yes, there is a relation. Observe the relation here. So this is the table that they have given. In this table, they are talking the comparison of elements between non-living thing like soil. Let us take the soil, some small sample of soil, and living matter like any living tissue you can take from any organism. You just take this. That means in this table they are comparing between earth crust means non-living thing and human body means living organism. So they are making some comparison between non-living and living. And what is the conclusion they have given here? As a general information, if you see, whatever the elements that are present in the earth crust, same elements are present even in human body, even in living organisms also same elements are present. So whatever the elements that are present in the earth crust, same elements are present even in living organisms also. But proportions means percentages, if you are observing, then you can observe some differences. So elements are same in both of these, but percentage wise there is a huge difference, and that too. So this is the conclusion from biomolecules chapter. Now come back to the cell chapter. In the cell chapter, what they are saying, now this is non-living and this human body is a living. Then what is the difference between this? Even though elements are common, still this you are calling as living and this you are calling as non-living. So now what is the question here? What is that which makes the difference between non-living and living? That's what the question they have asked. What is the difference between this? It is the presence or absence of basic structural and functional unit of life. What is that? It is the cell. So where the cell is present, living organisms contain the cells. What about the non-living things? Non-living things do not contain the basic unit called cell. So cell is absent in non-living things, but cell is present in living organisms. This is a major difference. This is the most important point. So in this way they are giving introduction for the cell. So now once we know about what cell and its requirement, now you need to know what is this cell, what exactly present inside this cell, what is the function of this, what are the organelles, what are the functions of these organelles. In this way we will go in detail. So in this way they are giving some basic introduction. And what is this introduction? So cell is the basic unit for the life. So if you are calling something as a living organism, let us say that whether it is a bacterium or protist, fungus, animal, plant, whatever it is, if you are calling something as living, compulsorily it will have cell. At least one cell should be there, at least. So in this way, now immediately they are talking about two types of organisms. All the living organisms are having cells, fine. Even in that one also, some organisms are having only single cell. Some organisms are having only single cell. That means single cell itself is called as organism. But what about others? In some other organisms, single cell is not called as organism. Many cells will group together. They are present together, and then they will form one organism. So, and these are called as multicellular organisms. Multi means many. So these organisms have many cells. That's why they are called multicellular organisms. But here these organisms are having only one cell. That's why they are called as unicellular organisms. That is the reason why. So here initially they are saying that living organisms, for the living organisms, whether it is unicellular or multicellular, whatever it is, for living organisms what is compulsory? Cell is compulsory. Fine. Nice. And now based on number of cells present in a single organism. So based on number of cells, please remember here, number of cells. Based on number of cells that are present in the organism. So now organisms are again two types. Yes or no? What is this? Based on the number, if only one is present, it is called as unicellular organisms. Yes or no? And the organisms that are having many cells. If they are having many cells, they are called as multi. What is the meaning of multi? Multi means many. Okay, multicellular organisms. And here they are uni means what? Single cell containing organisms. In this case only one cell is present. Here many cells are present. In this way organisms are of two different types: unicellular, multicellular organisms. That's it. With this NCERT content is completed. And immediately after this they are saying that, so what is cell? What is this unicellular organism? How it is able to live on its own? In this way they have gone, but we are not directly going with this. In between this, here, since we are talking about unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, now we need to go and analyze the different informations given in NCERT in different other chapters. Already you studied about biological classification chapter, yes or no? So not now, so not just immediately, but already in class 11th you have studied, right, biological classification. In this biological classification, we have studied about Whittaker's classification, yes or no? So Whittaker classification we have studied. So in the Whittaker classification, total how many kingdoms are present? 5 kingdoms are present. How many kingdoms are present in Whittaker's classification? 5 kingdoms are present. Nice. And what are these 5 kingdoms? Observe the information very carefully. Already you know this, that's why I am going a little bit quickly. So wherever it is required, so there I will repeat it. Okay, so don't worry. So 5 kingdoms. What are the 5 kingdoms? First one, Kingdom Monira. First one is Kingdom Monira. Next one is Kingdom Protista. Next one is Kingdom Protista. And the third one is Kingdom Fungi. Kingdom Fungi. And the fourth one is Kingdom Plantae. Fourth one is Kingdom Plantae. You can call it as Plantae or simply say plants, plant kingdom, anything you can say. And the last one is Animalia. Last one is Animalia. You can call it as animals, animal kingdom. So in this way, total 5 kingdoms are present. Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Animalia. And now what are these all 5 kingdoms? So these are all living organisms. All these are living organisms. Living organisms. Please remember this one. Now I will give some information, very clear information. Please remember this content, whatever we are discussing now. The same content, once again we will repeat when we study about molecular basis of inheritance, which is a part of genetics, right? So there in NCERT they have given some basic introduction. So in that chapter, when we study about that information, that day once again we will revise this information. So please remember, generally students by the time we are going to that particular chapter, they will forget this. And that will create a problem. So please remember this. This information will be once again interlinked with molecular basis of inheritance introduction. So please remember. So living organisms, all the living organisms are classified into these 5 kingdoms. That's it. And now what we need to do, just now here we wrote that unicellular, multicellular organisms, yes or no? So now that information we will add here. Now what are unicellular, what are multicellular? So that information we need to write. And before writing that, now let us write about the type of cells. Kingdom Monera will have prokaryotics or eukaryotes. Which one it is having? Kingdom Monera is having prokaryotes. Prokaryotes. Anyhow, slowly we will study all these things and many times we will revise all these points. So don't worry. So this is the general information. Try to understand this. Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera is having all eukaryotes. That's it. Next one. What about the Kingdom Protista? Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi and Kingdom Plant. All these 4 kingdoms are having eukaryotes. All these are having eukaryotes. Understood or not? So prokaryotes are present only in 1 kingdom, but eukaryotes are distributed in 4 kingdoms. Like this also questions can be asked. Yes or no? So this is about prokaryotes and eukaryotes. But now our aim is unicellular, multicellular. Now let us focus on that. So now Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera is unicellular. Simply I am writing uni, that means unicellular. And then what about the Protista? Protista are also unicellular organisms. But what is the difference between this? Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera means what are present here? Eubacteria, Archaebacteria, Cyanobacteria, all these are present in Kingdom Monera. And what are these? These are unicellular prokaryotes. But what about Protista? Even though these are eukaryotes, they are unicellular. That means Protista are unicellular eukaryotes. Then what about Fungi, Plantae and Animalia? These are multicellular. These are multicellular. So observe this very carefully. So Monera and Protista are unicellular organisms, whereas Fungi, Plantae and Animalia are multicellular organisms. So in this way, organisms can be classified into unicellular and multicellular. So unicellular organisms are present in how many kingdoms? 2 kingdoms. What are those 2 kingdoms? Monera and protista. Whereas multicellular organisms are present in 3 kingdoms. What are those 3 kingdoms? Kingdom fungi, plantae and animalia. In this also questions can be asked. It is not that simply you are studying what is the meaning of unicellular, what is the meaning of multicellular. Those two statements you need to combine with this information. Then only our preparation will be completed. Is it clear? So this is what some basic information that we need to remember. Clear? This is what. So all the living organisms are classified into 5 kingdoms. Up to this it is good. So let us come back to the most important point. Let us observe very carefully. So living organisms means compulsorily they should have the cells. Living organisms means compulsorily they should have cells. Whether it may be single cell or it may be many cells, but cell is compulsory. Cell is compulsory. Now we will see about another statement given in NCERT. What is the statement? If anything less than complete structure of the cell, if it is less than cell, what is the meaning of less than cell? What is this less than cell, greater than cell? The meaning of less than cell means, less than complete structure of cell means, it is not having the properties of the cell. So for that you need to understand first what are the important properties of the cell. To call something as a cell, what are the most important? There are some things that are compulsory. Please observe this information very carefully. And there are some things that are optional. Please observe this very carefully. Please observe this very carefully. What is compulsory? To call something as a cell, what is compulsory? First point. First point is plasma membrane is compulsory. Plasma membrane is compulsory. So I will make this information very easy for you. First let us see about, let us take an example of prokaryote, let us take an example of eukaryote, okay. Let us see this. If you are talking about prokaryote, generally how we will draw the diagram? It will have the plasma membrane. This is the plasma membrane that is present. And outside the plasma membrane, cell wall is present. This is the cell wall. And outside this one, there is a glycocalyx layer is present. Yes or no? This is glycocalyx layer. Glycocalyx layer. But in the general diagram, you don't need to draw glycocalyx. If you draw plasma membrane cell wall, that is enough. Fine. This is for outer covering. Now inside what is present? Cytoplasm is present. So it is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is present. Next one. In the case of prokaryote, is nucleus present? Nucleus is not present. Then what is present? DNA is present. So directly DNA is present. Okay. So this is the DNA that is present. And apart from this, inside the cytoplasm, there are some structures. These are the organelles. What are these organelles? Ribosomes. Ribosomes. These are present. Along with some inclusion bodies are present, some other components are present. This is the basic structure of prokaryotic cell. Then what is the basic structure for the eukaryotic cell? In the case of eukaryotic cell, if you see, here also plasma membrane is present. I am simply writing PM. PM means plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is present. Then what about cell wall? Cell wall is not compulsory. Some eukaryotes have cell wall. Who will have cell wall? Plants are having cell wall. Fungi are having cell wall. And some protists are having cell wall. But what about the animal cells? Animal cells do not have cell wall, and remaining other protists, some protists are having cell wall and remaining protists do not have cell wall. So that's why cell wall is not compulsory here, but plasma membrane is compulsory. So I am not drawing, so leave it. Next one. In the case of eukaryotic cell, nucleus is compulsory here. Nucleus is present. Even though some mature cells like some mature RBC, mature sieve tube cells, they are not having nucleus, but leave it. But initially they are having nucleus. So nucleus is present. Not only this, many other organelles are present. Many other organelles are present. What are these? Endoplasmic reticulum is present. Golgi complex is present. Lysosomes are present. If they are plant cells, vacuoles are present. Cytoskeleton is present. In some cases, cilia flagella are present. And apart from all these things, if you see, here also ribosomes are present. Here also ribosomes are present. Yes or no? And mitochondria are also present. In the case of plant cells and euglena, plastids are also present. Yes or no? In this way, different types of organelles are present. This is what the basic organization. But what are compulsory? Whether it is a prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell, whatever it is, what are compulsory? First one, observe this carefully, plasma membrane. In both the cases, plasma membrane is present. So that means for the cell, what is compulsory? Whether prokaryotic cell, eukaryotic cell, whatever it is, to call it as a cell, plasma membrane is compulsory. This is the most important point that you need to remember. Fine. And after that, what is compulsory? Observe this, ribosomes. Ribosomes are compulsory. Second one is ribosomes are compulsory. Ribosomes are compulsory. And apart from this, they should have DNA as genetic material. Please observe this. In the case of prokaryote, DNA is the genetic material. In the case of eukaryote, DNA is the genetic material. That means for all the 5 kingdoms, what is the genetic material? DNA is the genetic material. DNA is the genetic material for all these things. Please remember, many students are thinking that, what is the mistake? I will tell you. Listen very carefully. Many students are thinking that, so why some viruses are having RNA genetic material, you know. Anyhow, now I will tell you about viruses separately. Some viruses are having RNA genetic material. And the major mistake done by students is, majority of the students are thinking that viruses are part of Monera. This is wrong. Will viruses come under the kingdom Monera? No. Viruses are not cells. Please remember, only cells you need to talk. Only living organisms you need to talk. So you should not talk about viruses. This is the most important point. So why you are not talking about viruses? Now we will talk about this point. Viruses. So here, what is the most important requirement here? Plasma membrane should be present. What is compulsory for the cell? Plasma membrane. Now tell me for the virus. For the virus, is plasma membrane present? No, it is not having a plasma membrane. Then what it is having? It is having a protein capsid. It is just a protein capsid. It is having a protein capsid. I am drawing a rough diagram for the virus because different viruses are having different shapes. This is a general diagram for the bacteriophage. Bacteriophage. What is bacteriophage? It is a virus infecting bacteria. So for that, protein capsid is there. But here what we want? Plasma membrane we want. Is plasma membrane present? No. So this is why it is not considered as cell. Please remember this. So that's why viruses, they do not have the basic unit called cell. So if it is not having cell, can you call it as a living organism? No, you cannot call this as a living organism. So this is what they are saying. And here under compulsory, come back once again. Ribosomes. Do viruses have ribosomes? No, viruses do not have ribosomes. So ribosomes are also absent. And here DNA is the genetic material. DNA is the genetic material. Compulsorily genetic material should be there, and that genetic material should be only DNA, not RNA. See this. Observe this carefully. All these 5 kingdoms are having the living organisms, and all the living organisms are having only DNA as genetic material. All the living organisms are having only DNA as genetic material. Then what about the viruses? In the case of viruses, some viruses have DNA as genetic material, whereas some viruses have RNA as genetic material. So this is what the variation is. They are having their own genetic material. But they don't have plasma membrane. They don't have ribosomes. So these two are absent. So that is the reason why viruses are not considered as cells. So that's why in the NCERT sentence, you just understand, anything less than complete structure of the cell does not ensure independent living. What is the meaning of this? To live independently, at least a cell is required. But this is not having the cell. So if virus is not having the cell, can virus live independently on its own? Can virus divide on its own? No. It cannot live independently on its own because it is not even having basic unit called cell. This is what the point that they are saying. So that is the reason why viruses, generally viruses, how they will propagate? Virus will infect the host. Inside the host, they will multiply. That's how they will actually grow and propagate. So what we are saying, outside the host, virus is equal to dead. Virus is equal to dead thing. But inside the host, yes, it can divide and form next generation viruses. So inside the host it is behaving like living organism, but outside the host it is behaving like non-living thing. That is the reason why viruses are considered as connecting links. Viruses are considered as connecting links between this BN means between non-living and living. Non-living and living. The same virus, if it is present outside the host, it is behaving like non-living. The same virus, if it is entering into the host, it is behaving like living organism. The same thing, it is having two different properties in two different conditions. But the point is, it is not having basic unit called a cell, so it is not called as complete living, but it is considered as connecting link. So it is present in between these two. So that's why it is called as connecting link between non-living and living organisms. So this is what the point that they are saying. Clear? So please understand this point. So viruses are not part of any kingdom. Please remember, viruses are not part of any of these kingdoms. They are completely kept separately. Understood or not? So this is the basic information you need to understand. So all the living organisms have basic unit called a cell. So we can classify them into unicellular or multicellular, or depending on the type of the nucleus that is present. So if it is a primitive type, not even a complete nuclear membrane, then they are called prokaryotes. If well-defined nucleus is present, then they are called as eukaryotes. But whatever it is, both prokaryotes, eukaryotes, that means unicellular, multicellular, all these are having only DNA as the genetic material. RNA is genetic material only in some viruses, not all viruses. In the viruses also, some are having DNA genetic material, some are having RNA genetic material. So this information once again we will recollect when we are talking about molecular base of inheritance. So please remember this, because in molecular base of inheritance we need to talk with respect to genetic material. So I have covered that point also here. So please remember this. So for all living organisms, DNA is the genetic material. In the case of viruses, some are having DNA, some are having RNA. That's it. So this is with respect to the basic unit called cell. Fine, very good. Now once we understood what is the role of the cell, what are the important components, and if you are observing this particular list, here we wrote that these are compulsory. And apart from this, anything else, that is optional information. Because even though they are not present, cell is able to survive, yes or no? So if you are saying that nucleus is compulsory, endoplasmic reticulum is compulsory, even though they are not present, here still the cell is able to survive. So I am talking with respect to survival. For the survival, what are compulsory? Plasma membrane is compulsory, ribosomes are compulsory, and genetic material DNA is compulsory. These three are compulsory, and remaining all are optional information. Understood or not? So if they are present, yes, information will be little bit complicated like eukaryotes. If they are not present, it will be very simple like prokaryote. That's it. And now here in the NCERT, they are specifically talking about prokaryotic cell. That means unicellular cells, unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms. Please remember, unicellular organisms are present in two kingdoms. What are the two kingdoms? Kingdom Monera and Kingdom Protista. Yes or no? Now we will go with this analysis once again, and I will ask some questions. So listen very carefully, and then we will come back to this information. Let us see this. Now here, all the living organisms are divided into how many kingdoms? 5 kingdoms. Out of these 5 kingdoms, how many kingdoms have prokaryotes? Only one kingdom. And how many kingdoms are having eukaryotes? 4 kingdoms. Clear? Reverse. Reverse. So how many kingdoms are having eukaryotes? 4. And how many kingdoms are having prokaryotes? Only one. Clear. Next one, with respect to unicellular, multicellular. So how many kingdoms are having unicellular organisms? 2 kingdoms. What are those? Monera and Protista. How many kingdoms are having multicellular? 3 kingdoms. Fungi, plant and animalia. Up to this already we have covered. Now I will give some statements. Listen very carefully, and whether they are true or false, that you need to tell me. Understood or not? Now let us see this. So better I will use a different color. So let us see this. All the prokaryotes are unicellular organisms. I will repeat the sentence again. Listen carefully. All the prokaryotes are unicellular organisms. True or false? All the prokaryotes are unicellular organisms? Yes, it is true. Now let us ask the question in reverse. What is the reverse? All unicellular organisms are prokaryotes. All unicellular organisms are prokaryotes. True or false? Definitely this is false, because some unicellular are prokaryotes, some unicellular are eukaryotes. Because protista is eukaryote, right? They are also unicellular. So that is the reason why read the statement carefully. So all the prokaryotes are unicellular, correct. All the unicellular organisms are prokaryotes, wrong. It is wrong. So please understand this one. Next one, come to this one. All the eukaryotes are multicellular, true or false? All the eukaryotes are multicellular, true or false? Now it is false, because protista are eukaryotes, but they are not multicellular. Yes or no? So here only fungi, plant and animalia are multicellular. So all eukaryotes are multicellular is wrong. Now let us see the reverse. All multicellular organisms are eukaryotes, true or false? Now this is true, because multicellular means only these three, and all these three are eukaryotes. So that is the reason why read the statement very carefully. Now let us, I will give once again. All prokaryotes are unicellular, correct. All eukaryotes are multicellular, wrong. This is the conclusion, right? Please understand. Reverse. All multicellular are eukaryotes, correct. All unicellular are prokaryotes, it is wrong. So please read the statements very carefully. Try to understand the logic. So based on that, go for the answer. Don't think that, so whatever you may think that only one particular one, and based on that you may think that it is correct. It is not like this. Understand this particular relation, and based on that you need to select the right or wrong statements. Clear? This is what the information. Now our aim is these two things. Unicellular organisms. In the case of unicellular organisms, how single cell itself is called as organism, and that too how single cell itself is able to live on its own, how it can live independently on its own. Now let us take these three: fungi, plant, animalia. Now human will belong to kingdom animalia. Now we are having so many cells in our body, and let us consider that, let us take a one cell, single cell out of body, and let us see this. Can this single cell live independently? From the multicellular organism you are taking one single cell, and can this single cell live independently on its own? It cannot live independently on its own. So this is the most important point. But in the case of unicellular organism, single cell itself is present and it can live on its own. It can live independently on its own. And there, how it is possible? These are the points that they are discussing in NCERT. So what they are saying here, in the case of unicellular organisms, first one. Now what they are saying here, all the reactions for survival of organism are performed in single cell itself. But in the case of multicellular organisms, entire all these cells combinedly called as one organism. And for this organism, for the survival and to show various properties or behaviors, various cells will interconnect with each other. But in the case of unicellular, single cell itself is there. All the reactions that are needed for survival of the cell will be performed there itself. So that is the reason why, and here they are having independent existence. First thing is they have independent existence. What is the meaning of this independent existence? They can live on their own. So even though single cell is present, it can survive on its own. But for multicellular organism, if you are taking single cell out, it cannot survive on its own. What is the major reason here? This is the one. In the case of unicellular, all the essential functions needed for survival of cell are performed by that cell itself. But in the case of multicellular, single cell is not performing all the functions. And here we are adding another word. What is that word is called? Division of labor. Division of labor. What is the meaning of this division? Division means what? Distribution. Distribution of. What is this labor means? Labor means work. Work distribution is there. Where you will see this work distribution? In unicellular or multicellular? Multicellular organisms. In the case of multicellular organisms, work distribution is there. That means same work is distributed for many cells. So many cells will do some part of this one. So as a whole, combinedly they will perform one work. But in the case of unicellular, it is not like this. Single cell will do the entire work and not just one work. So many works it has to do. So that's why they can survive on their own. So that's why they are having independent existence. But in the case of multicellular organisms, single cell cannot perform all the functions because division of labor, distribution of work is there, so that each cell will do only some part of the function. That's it. Yes or no? Anyhow, some basic reactions will occur inside this, but as a whole property of organism, if you see, it is the interaction of these cells. Understood or not? And here also, even in multicellular cells also, even in multicellular organisms also, in each cell some basic reactions will occur. Some basic reactions will occur so that cell can be present in living condition. To keep the cell in living condition, some reactions will occur. But it does not mean that cell can live independently. Both these things are something different. Reactions are occurring in the cell so that cell is living. That is the basic reactions. They are happening in all the cells. But what is the other point we are saying? All the functions it is showing, that is seen only in unicellular but not in multicellular. This is the difference that you need to notice. That's it. This is what they are saying. So in this way, unicellular organisms are able to survive on their own, but in the case of multicellular organisms, many cells are present together. But whatever it is, whether unicellular or multicellular, whatever it is, cell is compulsory. That's what they are saying. So that is why they are saying that if anything less than the cell, like viruses in biological classification, you are studying about viruses, viroids, prions. They don't have any basic unit called cell. So that's why these cannot have independent existence. They cannot live on their own. That means outside the host, they cannot survive on their own. So that's what the point that they have given in the NCERT. Okay, let us quickly go through that particular content and then we will proceed further. So here, cell, the unit of life, here they are saying that when you look around, you see both living and non-living things. So in our surrounding, we are observing many living and non-living things around us. So you must have wondered and asked yourself, what is that makes an organism living? So why some organisms are called living? So how this is possible, and what is the unit that is responsible for keeping this as living? Or what is that an inanimate? Inanimate means non-living. So inanimate thing does not have. So what is present in living? What is not present in non-living? So that which a living cell has. So something is present in living organism, whereas that particular content or component is not present in non-living thing. So what is that? The answer to this is the presence of basic unit of life that is called as cell, that is present in all living organisms. That means cell is present only in living organisms. It is not present in non-living things. That's what they are saying. Next one, all organisms are composed of the cells. So whatever is the kingdom, any kingdom you just take, if it is organism, compulsorily cells should be present. So all the organisms are made up of cells. Some are composed of single cell. So some organisms are having only single cell. Single cell itself is called as organism, and these are called as unicellular organisms. While others like us means like human, we are composed of many cells. So if single organism has many cells, then it is called as multicellular organism. That's what they have given in the NCERT. Next one, then what is the cell? Unicellular organisms are capable of. So single cell organisms, they are able to do, they are having independent existence. They can exist on their own. They can live on their own. Single cell can survive on its own. That's what they are saying. And performing the essential functions of the life to live for the life, whatever the reactions that are required, all the reactions will happen in that single cell. But in multicellular, it is not like this. That is what the difference here. So how this single cell is able to survive? Because it is able to perform all the reactions that are required for living condition. That's what they are saying. Next one, anything less than a complete structure of cell does not ensure independent living. That means if something that is having structure less than the cell, that means cell is not there. Less than the cell means cell is not there. In that case, it does not ensure independent living. So in that case, it cannot live independently. So that's why they may ask a question, what is the minimum or the basic thing that can live on its own? That is the cell. Cell is the minimum or the basic thing that can have independent existence. And if something is less than the cell, it cannot live independently. That's what they are saying. Next one, hence, cell is the fundamental, structural and functional unit of all the living organisms. That's why whether they are eukaryotes, prokaryotes, unicellular, multicellular, whatever it is, for all the living organisms, the compulsory, basic means what, or fundamental or basic means what, compulsory. That is the minimum. What is that? It is the structural and functional unit called cell. Cell is compulsory for all these organisms. This is what they have given. So regarding the scientists and all, so we will see in the next lecture. Okay. Thank you so much, my dear friends. We will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.